Good morning. It's time to wake up, get after it, get into God's Word. This morning we're in 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 6. It says, "And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him." Good morning, Wildwood. It's time to get up, get after it. Let's get going. Let's get into God's Word. Today we're in 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 6. "And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God." David found himself in a rough spot, a bad spot. It was desperate. It was discouraging. It was dark, and it would have taken out the best of us. And it just about did David, except for this: he encouraged himself in the Lord his God. You know, sometimes we got to encourage ourselves. We can't wait around for everybody else to get on page and get the memo. Hey, I need some encouragement over here. Now, I hope some encouragement's coming your way from somebody, but sometimes we got to encourage ourselves. And maybe for you, that day is today, that you need to stir up and encourage yourself in the Lord your God. And so how do you do that? How do you motivate yourself? I think number one, just remember you're not alone. That's encouraging right there. God, you promised that you are with me. Realize what's at stake. You know, so often we get discouraged and we feel like quitting, but then when we realize the cost of quitting, there's always a cost of quitting. There's always a price to be paid for just throwing in the towel and not pushing through. When we remember that, it encourages us to keep on going. When we cultivate relationships that are good relationships in our life, you know, I know you might be hoping and wishing somebody would give you a call and say, hey, you want to go out for lunch? But you know what? Maybe you need to pick up the phone and just call them and say, hey, what are you doing for lunch today? Hey, let's go out and grab a bite of tea. Maybe you need to call somebody and you just start the conversation. So cultivate those relationships. Don't just sit there and sulk and wait for them, but be proactive. Take the step and say, you know what, I'm going to reach out and try to develop some friendships and make those friendships grow. Reflect on how far you've come. You know what, today is it's not your first day, right? This world's been spinning around for a while. You've had a few days looking back on the past in your life, right? Some calendar years have folded over, right, to the new year. Reflect. Remember back how far you've come. You've been through some stuff. I know today is bad. Maybe today is dark, like it was for David. But you've been through some other tough stuff in the past, and you got through it with God's help. Today's no different. Remember that. Reflect on how far you've come. And then finally, I would just say read God's Word. That's why we start every morning here, jumping in, reading a little bit of God's Word, because God's Word, it encourages us, it instructs us, it inspires us, it shows us which way to go in life. And sometimes when the day is really dark and it just feels like the lights are out and we're just fumbling around, that's when we need the light of God's Word to light our path and to show us that next step to take. So today, be like David. Don't wait for somebody else. Encourage yourself in the Lord.